Somebody paid me $250 for a link on a page that would be read by almost nobody. I knew that when the money landed, so did they if they had looked at the page instead of the domain. That single transaction is the entire market, and it is worth working through properly because the glib answer to it is wrong. So the honest question is what you are actually purchasing when the page has no audience. Why, I can tell you, I buy placements and I sell them. I keep two ledgers, one for links I paid for pointing at my brands, one for links sitting on my sites for other people. When I audited outbound across my properties this year, I found over 15,000 do follow links, leaving against 16 coming in. I sell placements from that same property. So treat all of this as a man describing his own inventory. What a link is made of. A link does two jobs. It passes something to a search engine, and it carries a person from one page to another. This market prices the first job and behaves as though the second one does not exist. On a page with no traffic, that second job never happens. No clicks, ever, from a page that will sit there, getting crawled and read by nothing with a pulse. Why worthless is the wrong answer. The easy line is that a page nobody reads is worth nothing, and I do not think that is true, so let me be careful with it. A crawler needs no audience. The link gets fetched and counted in whatever the graph counts, the same as a link on a page with 10,000 readers a month. Pages with no human audience have moved rankings for years and still do. Anyone telling you flatly that a zero traffic placement does nothing has never run the test and is repeating something they read. So there is value in there. You have bought half a product at the price of a whole one, which is a different complaint and a more accurate one. Which half you kept? Here is the part that settles it for me. The half you lost is the durable half. A person who clicks through, lands on your page and buys something, does not care what any algorithm decided this quarter. That value arrived in your bank account and stayed there. It also verified itself, which nothing on the ranking side ever does. The half you kept is rented from a company that changes its mind on its own schedule, several times a year, without telling you. So on a quiet page, you have bought the volatile half and none of the permanent half, at a price quoted as though you got both. That is the real trade. What makes a quiet page worth anything? Quiet pages are not all the same object, and this is where most buyers stop thinking. 4 things decide it. First, whether a human being can reach the page at all. Is it linked from anywhere on the site, or is it a URL that exists only in a sitemap? Second, whether anything else on that site gets read. A quiet page on a live site is an archive. A quiet page on a site where every page is quiet is a warehouse. Third, whether the page sits in a section the site itself treats as real. Same template, same navigation, same author byline as everything else, or parked in a folder called resources that nobody has touched since the day it was created. Forfaisons, Ferminiansens, Fermilitonsen, Fermipiempristen. If nobody has ever linked to it, there is not much arriving for your link to take a share of. The click test. The first of those is the only one you can settle in under a minute, and it disqualifies more placements than the other 3 combined. Take the URL the seller gave you. Open the site's homepage. Now try to arrive at that page by clicking the way a person would, work down the navigation into the blog, through the categories, into the archive. Give it 3 clicks. If you cannot get there, the page is an orphan. The site does not consider it part of the site. The only visitor it will ever have is something automated that already knew the address. An orphan page is a file. It has your link in it and no route by which anybody reaches it. There is a middle case worth naming. The page is reachable, technically, but only through a category page 5 clicks down that the navigation does not surface either. The site links to it the way a warehouse links to a box in the back. Treat that as an orphan with paperwork. 30 seconds done in a browser, no subscription to anything. Most people buying links have never once done it. The question that makes people uncomfortable. This is the arithmetic that separates the 2 kinds of buyer, and it is the whole video. Would you pay for this link if the metrics did not exist? No authority score, no traffic estimate, no referring domain count, just the page and where your link goes on it. If the answer is no, then the link itself is incidental. What you are buying is a metric, and metrics are the most manufacturable thing in this entire business. A score computed from a link graph goes up when a site acquires links, which is precisely the trade a link seller is in. A traffic estimate is a model, and I can hold those models against real analytics on properties I own, and they are wrong by a factor of several in both directions. So the thing you are paying for is the easiest thing to fake, and the thing you could confirm with your own eyes, which is whether anybody is there you have decided not to look at. Value it as if the tools shut down. Here is the replacement question, and it is the one I actually use. Price the placement by what it would do for you if every third-party tool went offline tomorrow and never came back. Would a person in your market ever land on this page? Would you be glad to have your name on it if a potential customer read it? Would it produce one inquiry in a year? If all of those are no, then what remains is the ranking signal on its own, and that number is a great deal smaller than what you are being quoted. I have written separately about pricing a placement properly. This is the narrow case sitting underneath it. My number, which will annoy sellers, I will not pay more than a quarter of asking price for a placement on a page I cannot reach by clicking from the site's own navigations. In practice, that means I do not buy them, because no seller discounts by 75%. Both of us know why. The placements I bought last year came to $387 across 3 sites. One of those 3 sits on a page a real person could plausibly arrive at. I knew that about all 3 before I paid. So the rule I have just given you is a rule I broke twice with my eyes open, which is the correct amount of respect to have for it. The quarter figure has no science behind it. It is roughly what I think the crawl only half of a link is worth once you have removed the half that brings you a customer, and if you land somewhere between a fifth and a third, I would not argue with you. The part where I am the problem. I sell do-follow placements on my own sites at $250. Some of what I sell is exactly the thing I have spent 10 minutes describing. There are pages on my properties that essentially nobody reads, and the link on one of them is worth less than the invoice says. When a buyer asks me directly, I tell them. Almost nobody asks. Across everything I have quoted for, the buyers who wanted to know which page before paying can be counted on one hand. That outbound ratio I mentioned, 15,000 out against 16 in, describes my own inventory rather than somebody else's. It tells you roughly what any single link leaving that property is carrying, and I have sent invoices for links leaving that property. What I changed is small. When someone asks for a placement now, I point them at a page the site actually links to, at the same money, rather than the quiet one that would have been easier to hand over. What the seller tells you without meaning to, ask for the exact URL before money moves. It is a completely ordinary request, and the reaction to it is worth more than the answer. A seller who names the page immediately has a page. A seller who says they will place it on the most relevant article is telling you they will write one. And a seller who will not show you the page until after payment has already answered the question. When a quiet page is genuinely fine, there is a legitimate version of this, and I am not going to write it off. A real publication with a deep archive has thousands of pages nobody read this year. That is what an archive is. A 5-year-old article on a site with a working newsroom is quiet for the same reason an old newspaper is quiet. That page belongs to a body of work that gets linked to and crawled constantly, and the link inside it inherits some of that. So the test is never whether the page gets traffic, it is whether the site has anything at all that does. What I cannot tell you, I have no discount curve for this. I cannot tell you a zero traffic placement is worth 30% of a trafficked one, because I have no dataset that says so, and never does anyone quoting you a figure, and I have paid for exactly this kind of link anyway, knowingly more than once. My reason was that I wanted a link from that particular site because of what the rest of the site was, and the page they offered was the page they had. I judged the site worth paying for while knowing the page carried nothing. Buying a dead page for that reason is defensible. Buying one because a tool said the domain scored well is not, and that is the reason almost everybody actually pays. Then ask yourself whether you would still want the placement with the score stripped out of the pitch. If the honest answer is no, stop negotiating on price and start negotiating on the page. Ask for a placement inside something the site already links to from its own navigation and already sends people to. Sellers agree to that far more often than they discount because it costs them effort instead of money. And if they will not, you have found out what the site is for free before spending anything. The click test And the exact wording I use when I ask a seller for a different page is at theseodesk.com. Subscribe for more on link building.